everyone, welcome to GlideFast On Air. I'm Lauren Jankowski, the marketing specialist here at GlideFast, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, How ServiceNow Training Increases User Adoption GlideFast Style. I'm excited to introduce to you today your presenter, Alex Darby, the Director of Training here at GlideFast. Before we get started, I'd like to give you some background information on GlideFast Consulting. We are a consulting firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow, and as an Elite ServiceNow Partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, on the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 100 experienced consultants, an average CSAT score of a 9.6, and many more accolades, as you can see here. We'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout today's session, so please send in any questions as they arise, and we'll do our best to answer them. As another perk of attending today's webinar, we'll be giving away a $50 Visa gift card. We'll announce the winner of that at the end, so make sure you stay on. Now, I'd like to hand things over to our Director of Training, Alex Darby.
So I'm Alex Darby, Director of Training for GlideFast. Our agenda today will be to cover what GlideFast offers from a training perspective. How do we do that differently? What were the results of this recent implementation of a methodology that we've come up with? And then how much do you save by investing in trainings? So we offer two different kinds of training mostly, but we're open to any ideas about how you'd like to train on really anything ServiceNow related. We have empowerment training, which usually is at the beginning of an implementation. Then we have adoption training, which is really training the people who ServiceNow was bought for, the process users and the end users, more towards go live of your implementation. Now, there are a lot of ServiceNow partners and also ServiceNow in general who offer these, but how do we do it differently? What's the GlideFast methodology that makes this different, right? And then this methodology I've been focusing on for about the last quarter. I've had a little bit of time to focus by not being able to go anywhere. And then what were the results of that? How are students reacting to this new methodology? And then what do we save, right? What is the ROI on our training investment? Training is more money, plain and simple. But then how does that save us money in the end? Don't be afraid to invest the money to save the money later. And then, of course, we'll do a Q&A session at the end and discuss the winner of the big money. And then we'll also figure out what's wrong with my little sad friend over here. I'm hoping that he's not already bored with my presentation. It's just the first slide, buddy. All right, so empowerment training. This is at the beginning of the training and at any point in the ServiceNow life cycle. This is for your administrators, your process owners, your key stakeholders to be able to learn ServiceNow out of the box. We prefer to call that the base installation. And what we do is guide you through both the free and paid trainings that are available from the amazing ServiceNow Training and Certification Organization, or TACO. We drive user adoption by training your process owners, your administrators. And a process owner is someone who comes up with the incident management process, or someone who owns the change management process or problem management process, or a configuration manager for the CMDB. And we really want them to understand how ServiceNow works so we can work with them together to drive the end user or the process user to adopt ServiceNow willingly and happily, rather than the organization having to force people to use service. And then also along that path, we really want to identify any administrators that could become developers in your organization and define what your roadmap is for ServiceNow and what we can do to train to achieve that roadmap, which can be saving on partner fees. Hopefully none of my management is on, but one of our goals is to actually allow you to do ServiceNow in-house through training and then reach out to GlideFast Consulting or our sister company Faracode and have us do the heavy lifting, have us do the integrations. So how do we approach this? We usually do an overview, right? Anybody who wants to come within your organization, 1 to 2 hours, seminar style like this, overview of ServiceNow. And then we focus on the platform. What does ServiceNow do baseline without any applications on it? How do you build a table? How do you create a field? What's a business rule? What's the CMDB? And that can be fundamental level approach or all the way up to advanced, again, depending on your roadmap and what resources you want to use internally. Then through your requirements in the implementation, we decide what applications you're going to use. Do you need a HR application? Do you need customer service management? Do you need discovery, ITOM products? And then we teach you the fundamentals of those, either ourselves or we enlist the help of the ServiceNow Training Department, which has been around for years, excellent training coming out of them, which is really the basis for all of our empowerment training. And that's always implementation specific. So out of these 3 levels of training, we also want to identify your resources. One of the most important things in a ServiceNow implementation is who's the admin? Who's the process owner, right, that could become an application administrator? Who's the business user, the Fred Luddy dream, right? Who's the business owner who can then develop in ServiceNow? Who are your process owners overall? Who are the management who are going to consume reports, right? The management's probably the one who made the executive decision on to buy ServiceNow. How do they interact with ServiceNow to get their proof of value, to see the number of incidents created, the resolution time reduced? And then, of course, your audiences. Who's your process and your end users? So how do we achieve all this, right? How do we do this empowerment? We work with ServiceNow, of course. ServiceNow, one of the 2019 top IT training companies of last year, on the watch list for Training Industry Magazine. And then you can't argue with these statistics, right? 315 plus different courses and certifications on Now Learning, which is their one-stop shop for all learning in ServiceNow. Most of those, probably 250 to 275, are free and online and available. We just help you guide through that process based on your needs from the implementation. This is amazing, right? 9.4 out of 10 average customer CSAT rating for all classes taught by an instructor for ServiceNow forever, ever since the organization existed, which is in its 8th or 9th year or 10th year. I don't know how long it's been around. And a friend of mine named Andy Ho, who's a part of that organization, he likes to say, if you get a 9 out of 10 on a CSAT rating as a instructor for ServiceNow, you bring down the average, a 9 out of 10. So simply amazing organization and instructor-led classes coming out of there, and then their knowledge, right? 36,000 classes taught in 2019 alone. 36,000, students taught in 2019 alone. So we piggyback on that and we add to it here at GlideFast Consulting. So that's empowerment, right? That's at the beginning of the implementation. And then in the adoption, right, during the actual go live or right before the go live, we train the end users, which should require very little training. Now, an end user is somebody who's consuming the service or who's ordering the product through service. They should shopping designed through their service portal, which is one of the things that GlideFast Consulting has experience in, is actually experts in the service portal. That should relatively be very little training, right? Maybe you have a complicated process that you have to explain a little bit. Or one of our examples that we've done is, for example, you're trying to get cash assistance for COVID, right? COVID has affected you in some way and you have a state-run app and you have to explain to the end user how to fill out a form. Process users are the main goal here, right? They're the biggest user base in ServiceNow that needs the most training. Like, you're going to have more end users, of course, but your process users on how you do things, these are the folks who need to be explained how to work an incident, how to work a problem, how to get through the change management process. And then how does a manager consume a report? How does a manager see the investment they made in ServiceNow pay out through their interaction with ServiceNow? This is available hourly, or you can buy a package. And this is user adoption. This is literally training the process users. That's the person that you need to focus on the most with adoption, and teach that end user or process user how to use what was built throughout the implementation. And we do that a couple different ways. We can do instructor-led, which is virtual or on-site at some point in the future, right? Recorded trainings, they tend to be our most popular option right now because you have them forever. So you record the trainings and they're available forever. Plus, we happen to have an amazing, what we call that, a voice man, Kyle Goldstein, who does a great job of recording these. So they come out really professionally, as well as Diana and myself. And then guided tours, right? This is the basically pop-up windows that come in ServiceNow that allow you to train in the instance. So you're literally training while they're going through and doing their job, or maybe in a test environment or dev environment. A QRC is a quick reference card, something for the process user to have at their desk to actively engage with ServiceNow right at the moment in time when they're doing their job. Any e-learning platform that you have, we can design in. And then change enablement, right? If you need help throughout the implementation of your project in order for users to adopt overall, we offer that as well. Now, what are the reasons we go about this, right? Managers and IT departments, they often rush to get the greatest and latest software, which quite honestly is ServiceNow right now, but they don't consider the need to train end users. So right when you get to go live, you start realizing, wait a second, Nobody knows how to use what we built. We need training immediately. So we can handle that, right? We can handle the moment in time. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We forgot about training. We can definitely do that. But what we want to do is set up a strategy, talk with you at first where you have a scalable end user training strategy that's built on assessing the end user needs. And end user in this case also would mean process user, whoever's consuming or working the service. Set up some training goals. Do you want to test these folks? Is this just something that they need a document on, or is it a video-based solution that will work? The training delivery methods. So what we just mentioned, do we want to have this instructor-led? Do we want to train the trainer? Do we want to do video recorded or just the guided tours? Whatever it is we want, we decide that at the beginning. Then we create the training program, and then we focus on making it scalable. Needs to grow with your use of ServiceNow. And the tendency for ServiceNow is that you start off small, and then it grows within your organization as it is a true enterprise solution. So you have to have a training program that supports that growth, whether that's more training, offering live trainings with instructors, or recordings that change over time based on your needs with ServiceNow training. What's the point? What are we trying to do with this adoption training? We want to identify the purpose of the software. What are we doing? This is incident management. Okay, I'm here for incident management. Tasks the users will complete with the software. How it differs from the previous version, right? What are the same similarities and what's different? Use the already known knowledge by the process user of the previous system to help you with ServiceNow. And then common problems. Common problems are huge. Being able to tell someone, hey, watch out for this, and then they watch out for it is much better than them saying, I can't figure this out, and opening a support ticket or emailing somebody within the project. And then security issues, right? What is confidential about customers? What is confidential about patients, depending on what kind of organization, about students, if you're in the education industry. And then we combine all these different styles here: hands-on instruction, hands-on classroom style, seminar style like this, CBT training, which is hands-on labs, whether that's empowerment or adoption. We call those our practical exercises, and it's literally people going in and simulating their job within their own instance and then basing the training off of that. And then, of course, self-paced training, if that is an option, giving a book to do labs in or what have you. So all of these combined offered in the best possible solution that we come up with you based on the ADDIE methodology, right? We analyze what is needed by the process user. We design what is needed after evaluation with you. So this orange is you. This is the customer or the client that we're constantly working with to make sure we have the right information and that we're implementing the best possible solution. But then that's not the end, right? We continue with this cycle of constantly analyzing anything that's changed, designing training for it, developing it, implementing it, and then delivering it. All right, so that's what we do. Now, how do we do it a little bit differently than others, right? What's the GlideFast method for doing this? All of this is about driving user adoption. Everything you learn as a ServiceNow admin or as a developer should be, how do I make the users adopt this the easiest way? Whether that's an end user, which should be almost no training. They're consuming the service. It should be like an Amazon or a Walmart or whatever kind of experience where you go in and get what you want based on no training. Or you're a process user where you need to actually understand how change management works in order to be able to do change management within your organization. So we focus on students becoming trainers. We expect students to leave whatever class we're delivering, whether that's empowerment or adoption, to then train everybody they meet. They should have the knowledge to be able to explain whatever their job is, process user, developer, administrator, REST integration expert, whatever it is, to somebody else really simply and basically, and maybe even become trainers themselves, the train the trainer option at their own organization. And this is all about two things, right? Do it yourself, which is really what we try to focus on, or DIGF, do it GlideFast. Decide if this is something you want to do in-house or if this is something you want to resource out. We're here for both. Very few partners take that approach where we want you to do it yourself, but we also want you to do it with us. And you make that decision. We work with you to see what works best for you. Cognitive load is a huge thing for me. I believe that the 7 or 8 hour day straight of training is really hard to retain information from. Now, ServiceNow is huge, so they have to offer trainings as many as possible to get their 36,000 students through in a year. We don't have the same number of students, so we can take our time a little bit. So we offer half-day trainings if you do a private class with us, which is 4 hours a day, and then you have the rest of your day to catch up on your work. So we really try to spread out the training as much as possible. Of course, this isn't possible when we're delivering like a public class for ServiceNow. So we really try to space that out and give you as much time to do the class as possible within the day. And we focus on training, our mentorship becoming a partnership with you, right? You're not our student after you come out of the class, you're our partner, and we work together to have communication that we are always in contact. Once a student with GlideFast, always a student. And we do this based on the Kirkpatrick Training Method, which I'll go over here shortly. So these are our main key focuses that we try at GlideFast. Interaction. When you're in a GlideFast class, we make mistakes together. We design things, we do things on the fly. Let's say John will have a question or Jane will have a question. We'll try to do and answer that question together and solve their real world example right in class without any previous knowledge. I'll guide you through, we'll make mistakes, we'll figure them out. Sometimes we won't, and then I'll get back to you later and say, hey, this was the solution for it. Making mistakes is the best possible way to learn because it stays in your brain. Questions. I ask you a ton of questions in class. You ask me a ton of questions in class. So therefore, we have a constant discussion, which is very important, especially in a virtual environment. You have to constantly engage. Otherwise, the learning is diminished, right? If it's just me dictating to you, kind of like right now, then there is not a lot of learning that happens. And we always use real world examples. We have the excellent ones that have come up with by ServiceNow when they design the curriculum, but then we also add real world examples that could have even been experienced the week before. So we have the ServiceNow product, right, the content from them, and then constantly updating and putting more information on top of our classes. Communication. As soon as you're signed up to be a student with GlideFast, we email you. As soon as we find out, right, what do you need to know? That's it. Very simple question. If you're in a scripting class, what do you need to know for your real world job for scripting? Let me know what it is, and I'll do our best to put it in during the class, and then we communicate after. So once a student with GlideFast, we always try to communicate with you to see what your needs are for training. Our different mediums of teaching. We build requirements in class, plain and simple. We'll come up with a requirement, and we'll try to repeat it in class, building it together so we're not just doing hands-on labs by ourselves. So we have the class participation as well as the hands-on labs, which are huge. That's on-the-job training, whether that's practical exercises from a custom training standpoint, or that could be in the empowerment training sessions, which are before you start implementing things like that. But you're in a ServiceNow instance and you're learning step by step. And then we're also building requirements where you're using your brain to get through the requirement with the trainer leading the class. And then, of course, making mistakes on the fly. Whenever you build things live, you're going to make mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes. I can't stress how important that is. Demonstrations, sometimes there's something pretty complex. Like in the scripting class last week, I demonstrated a UI page and how to call that from Glide Modal. And that was more of a demonstration purpose, right? But still pretty cool. We showed it there. We're running a lot of participation because it's pretty advanced. And then a narrative. We try to make requirements that build on themselves, that tell a story throughout the whole process of the class. That narrative helps to attach the content, the subject that we're talking about, to your brain better because you're listening as a story is told. So those things right there are really key for me over the experience I've had with training over the years to really help you retain information better. Plus, it's just a more enjoyable class experience. And I really believe in the cycle of training, the cycle and capability of training, not a class is done and you're no longer a student. You come to a class, you're always a student, you can always ask me questions, and then I will always do my best to answer them because it's a mutually beneficial situation, as we'll demonstrate here shortly. So not only when you buy ServiceNow are you getting the ServiceNow work better together, a workflow philosophy as well, you also provide a promotion system within your organization to where you can take a process user or an end user and they can learn ServiceNow over time, and it's actually career growth within ServiceNow itself. So anyway, the GlideFast methodology is based on Kirkpatrick Method, and that is these 4 pieces, right? So the reaction piece of Kirkpatrick states that you should have immediate reaction to your training. ServiceNow takes care of this. We take care of this by sending out surveys to either our custom training clients or ServiceNow empowerment training that we do to get their immediate response. So that's handled all the time, and everybody does that that's a partner or ServiceNow. Then we continue on with the learning option here, where we're really in about 2 weeks or so, we try to follow up with you and say, well, what changed about your feelings towards ServiceNow? Do you feel more confident? Did this learning actually make you happier with your participation in ServiceNow? And then what changed about your behavior, right? What changed that made you more efficient? And really kind of one personal goal of mine is to make sure that you can do more with less time at work so you can spend more time enjoying the rest of your life. And then results. Results is the hardest part. This is the training that we are, when we're the training piece, when we're evaluating the cost savings, right? What did your investment in training actually give you as an ROI? All right, so this is the GlideFast methodology. Communication is key. We talk to you as a student before the class and then very simply ask one question. What is it that you want to learn in relationship to the content, right? If you're in a discovery class, what do you want to learn about discovery? If you're in a scripting class, what do you want to learn about scripting? And then we do our best to demonstrate that during the class so that other students benefit from it, right? Chances are if you have a question, some other student is going to have a question too, because you're both doing similar things at the same time in your ServiceNow lifecycle. So we take all that, anything we can't answer, anything we can't do before and during class, which does happen. Sometimes things are pretty complicated. We have to research these things. And then after. So we're in a constant cycle of communicating with you before, during, and after the implementation, or before, during, after the class or implementation, whatever it is. So we're constantly in communication with you for two reasons: to help you all with questions that you may have, but then we gain experience the more questions that we answer. So this focus has really been the key part of our shift in methodology just this quarter alone. So here's an example of this, right? I have a student in a class. This was a student from a large telco client. They asked, how do I do a report where I can just get incidents that were created on weekdays? It's a pretty simple question, but it was something that I had trouble figuring out, right? I couldn't figure it out off the top of my head. So the first stop that I go to is, of course, the GlideFast YouTube channels. They have a ton of information by experts, people far smarter than I am that work at GlideFast. That's always where I go, because if there's a video on it, you know, we're done. Here's your video. This is how you do it. Thank you very much. And we move on about our day. Couldn't find anything there. So we went to the ServiceNow product documentation, and then of course to the developer site, and then to the community, and so on and so forth. So I started to find out some information about it, and it turned out that I thought I was going to have to build a scripted solution. And anytime you get to a scripted solution, you want to rethink things. And it turns out at the end, it was a very simple report operator, which is called trend, right? If you do created trend Monday, you get all of the whatever record you want created on that day for Mondays, then for Tuesdays. So it ended up being a super simple solution, which really satisfied the student. And I learned as much from going down the wrong path as I did from actually finding the answer. And we'll see how this is reflected later to improve trainings in the future. So we have our methodology of communication where we're talking after, during, and before, which then that is all functioning and building on itself, giving us more experience. And then we have our training cycle where we are a ServiceNow Authorized Training Partner. So ServiceNow gives us content and authorizes us as trainers on whatever topic it is that is needed, whether it's, you know, from their environment or something that we can do internally. We learn from them, and then we use their content and deliver that content weekly, you know, every 2-3 weeks, whatever it is per given subject. And as we're doing that, we really build our experience because we're interacting with 16, you know, 5 to 16 different students every class, which then gives us more information to put new content on top, which is our real world examples, the demonstrations that we do in class. So you're getting the taking advantage of the decade-long experience of the ServiceNow training department, and then also the very much real-time, real-world experience of GlideFast, where we're changing the training every week based on this communication cycle that happens over here on the left-hand side. So as this is going over here, we're learning more and more, which is really contributing more experience and more content to our delivery, which then builds back on to the next student who comes up and says, well, how do I do this? Maybe we already know that because of this cycle of training, where we're really taking during, before, after delivery, content, experience, improving all of that all of the time, every time that we answer a student question or a student reaches out and goes, hey, Alex, thank you for the help. This would be cool that I learned in your class, which is absolutely what happened with one of our discovery classes. We were able to do an SCCM integration in a discovery class because a student just offered up information because they were so thankful about what they'd learned. So we really are this infinite cycle of training that we try to focus on using the GlideFast methodology. A couple other things that we try to do, that we achieve in doing, is we avoid using complicated words and jargons, right? We just try to explain things in as simple words as possible. So if you understand something simply, you can do it more complicated, right? If you understand the bones and how the process is built, or when to script in the client side or when to script server side, if you understand the basics, right, and you understand those fully based on really simple explanations, then you can do complicated things like UI pages and things like that. We use lots of diagrams, examples, case studies, moving PowerPoints, which sometimes cause computers to fail, and so on for readers to easily understand. Also, practical situations. We try to simulate the job within the class and make mistakes. Let employees learn from their mistakes so we can do these things really well. We want to be dynamic, adjust rapidly to changing business conditions. Collaborative, bringing together resources, both internal and external, to share insights, solve problems. So all of us, one ecosystem, constantly building on each other. And then we're connected across time zones, across organization silos. But the point here is to always be connected, because you can't be dynamic and adjust to changes if you aren't connected to other people who are experiencing those changes. So we're kind of the depot for information as this all starts to cycle on itself. So what ended up happening with that example, Zoom room chat, we got 2 real world examples. That one, which was fantastic for ServiceNow fundamentals, this way to query on weekdays, which might come up for other people, and then also a way more complicated answer to how do you dot walk on records in a list collector, glide list field, you can't. But we're able to figure out how to query those better for a report using a dynamic filter, and then a quick little cheat, which is using messages instead of a property to change a value from the client side. So all of this generated from one question, and really shows how that forever cycle starts to work. All right, so all that was this quarter, and we got some results in, right, of how this has been going. Surveys from ServiceNow, they do surveys on every class that we teach for them, and then direct emails, which I think are the best, because you literally are engaging with the person one-on-one. The surveys rate the instructor, the content, the environment, and then also you get comments from students, which are by far the best part, because it's literally a student telling you this was good or this was bad, and we change things every week based on the comments that comes in, as does ServiceNow. ServiceNow management reads every survey that comes in and ensures a high level of qualification for the ATPs, the Authorized Training Partners like we are. You have to maintain at least a 9.2 average overall, and we do a little bit better than that. So over the last quarter, here is the average, 9.44 for instructor CSAT rating. Over the previous 12 months, I was doing a pretty decent job, 9.69. I would hang my hat on that. But over the last quarter, over 6 classes now, a 9.9 overall CSAT rating using this infinite methodology of GlideFast to improve training. Much more real-world examples placed in, and just really impressive results coming back in from the students. Not only has the instructor rating gone up for me, but also the environment, which is the same, it's just the Zoom room, but because the class is so well regarded, people actually think the environment's better overall with an average. And then the courseware, of course, we add a couple of things to it, but the courseware is being perceived as better. So not only are the instructor scores better, but everything across the board as rated in by ServiceNow training. And then overall, these are the 5 things that instructor is rated on. I don't want to go through each one of them, but this one right here is the one that I really want to point out. Participants were encouraged to take part in class discussions. 10 out of 10 from 42 students across 6 different classes virtually. That is a really tough thing to do, is to keep someone engaged virtually. It's a lot of talking, a lot of questions being asked of each other, a lot of real world examples, a lot of mistakes being made. All of those things in combination result in class discussions. And if you're discussing something, you're retaining it a little bit better, a lot bit better, I'll admit, than just listening. So, in addition to that, tons of great comments. The instructor did a great job by giving live demos. One of the best trainers I've had in 20 years. And I'm only 23 years old, so a little bit older than that. I thought using the chat for discussion question was a bit disruptive. So good with the bad, right? Because this was a bit disruptive, we have, this, what was explained to the student was you can come off a mute, and they just had missed the beginning part of class where I explained that. So I explained that more throughout the class, adjust immediately to the comments coming in from a student. Could not have asked for more. Excellent instructor. Gave us real world scenarios as much as possible. You'll see real world throughout these comments as they come back in. Very lively and engaging and keeps the class interesting. That's also very key. So the comments coming back in are just great after this implementation of this new methodology. Direct emails from students, right? In this case, the student was able to interpret the errors ServiceNow shoots at them. That's a focus of the class. What is an error? Especially with the ITOM classes, that's really what you do is you manage errors. Right and wrong answers. Again, this was another suggestion. This person, I ask a lot of open-ended questions, right? I think they're the best kind of questions because you're really using your brain to think of the answer and not having the answer provided for you. But what happens when you provide answers like ABC to a question, you have a slide on it, everyone gets to participate, right? Because you have 3 there. And even if you guess wrong, you mark it wrong, it doesn't matter. It's a mistake. And we move on, you get the right answer and you remember it better. 4 months without a resolution. This student had came to the class and had gone 4 months trying to solve a problem. They came to class with that problem, emailed me about it. We did a 30-minute demonstration on it, walked through it together. They understood how to fix it and then went and fixed it. Understandable and approachable. Simple, easy jargon. That's what we try to do. Make it as simple as possible to explain complex things within ServiceNow. This one was probably one of our biggest success stories of the quarter. Got our CMDB. You all know how hard it is to put a CMDB on its feet. Some of the latest stats I've heard are that 80% of ServiceNow instances have a CMDB that could use a little bit of a health check. They got it on their feet. They were able to integrate with incident, problem, and change. And now they are going live with the ITBM suite in July and are confident in their success. Extremely positive feedback on the team. Seem to be loving the new work in ServiceNow. That's adoption. That is what you're aiming for. All right, so that's kind of the success story that's happened over the last quarter. And now we have our savings and benefits. Employee happiness, employee retention, employees that work smarter, adopt easier. So again, we'll use ServiceNow, who's quoting Gartner here. 80% of projects that have a 1.5% investment of the total budget in training succeed. 6 times, this one right here is the one that I really focus on. 6 times more support is required for untrained users than trained users. 6 times more support. 25% of performance degrades after 4 years without ongoing training. Why train in the first place? Why train at all? Increased profitability, consistent quality, customer satisfaction, employee development, which leads to employee retention. If you do not develop your employees, you do not retain them. $1,500, and these are all based on research I did, so I'll have the list of websites and things for anybody who needs them if they'd like to investigate further. $1,500 on training per employee can see an average of 24% more profit. Employee development makes median revenue double per employee, more than double per employee than companies that don't invest in their employee development. New employees are 42% more likely to stay when receiving the training they need to do their job properly. 75 to 80% of managers believe effective training is critical to project success. And I love this quote. If you believe that training is expensive, it is because you do not know what ignorance costs. Companies that have the loyalty of their employees invest heavily in permanent training programs and promotion systems. When you get ServiceNow, think of it as a new promotion system within your organization. And that person who's going to be promoted, combined with the GlideFast methodology of training, puts them on a success to earn more money in their position and become happier with a relatively interesting piece of software. There are a lot of big fans out there of ServiceNow, and become part of that community really makes people happy. Employees who do not feel they can achieve their career goals at their organization are 12 times more likely to leave. Increased job satisfaction, morale among employees, employee motivation, efficiencies in process, a capacity to adopt to new technologies and methods. 84% of employees in best performing organizations, so these are the top organizations across the world, if you ask 84 of 100 people there, are they getting the training they need? They say yes. That's a huge statistic. And then we have this survey conducted by PwC about millennials. Third on the list of things that millennials want is an excellent training and development program, and GlideFast can assist with that from the ServiceNow perspective. They also like to make a little bit of money. And then really career progression is also learning. It's on-the-job learning and how they do that. Now let's get down to brass tacks. What actually happened at GlideFast this quarter? We had a student made a $2,400 investment they expect to make $2,500 a month on discovery when they get to work. So this is a little bit of betting in the future for them. But if you multiply that over the year and do our program benefits divided by costs, a 1,250% return on investment. $7,000 investment from a student. They saved $30,000. So their return on investment was 428. These are both single students though, right? So a very small sort of microcosm there of the environment. This was our biggest success story of the quarter as far as training investment. This is an organization, a company, a client of ours in the healthcare and education industry. They invested $30,000 in training, 3 different classes, 5 to 10 different people in each class. This was more at the beginning of the year before our friend COVID started to visit. So I was actually there. I got to see someplace different, which was really cool. And it was tough to put a figure on, but they bet that on that $30,000 investment, they saved anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 alone, considering any rework and lack of productivity would have happened if they tried to figure it out on their own. That's at minimum, a 500% return on investment, maximum 667% return on investment from an organization, $150,000 to $200,000 in savings. Plus, they're the same folks that are standing up the CMDB that have the really happy employees in ServiceNow training. They're going to retain those employees. So we want to drive adoption, harness the power of ServiceNow with the expertise of GlideFast Consulting, both from an empowerment perspective as well as from an adoption perspective. We are a ServiceNow authorized trainer. We want to make users happy to work better together through training. So we can take the empowerment and the adoption together and have your study cats here use the power of our authorized training partner relationship with the ServiceNow training team and GlideFast together to turn your study cats, I guess that's what we can call them, into ServiceNow wizards, which means they have to grow out long beards, which I did have. I know everyone's disappointed that I don't have it anymore. I just had to trim it up for summertime. It was getting hot in there. All right, so what we're focusing on is what we call TAS, and you can always reach out to us at training@glidefast.com. This is where we take ServiceNow, which is a platform as a service, combined together. Again, we are ServiceNow authorized training partners, so in conjunction with ServiceNow, we really want to be GlideFast Consulting who delivers training as a service. All right, thank you all very much. You can always reach out to training@glidefast.com, but for now, let's do a little bit of Q&A.
Awesome, great job, Alex.
Thank you. Sorry about the technical problems there, guys.
No worries, it happens. If anyone has any questions, just use the Q&A section, but it does look like a couple people have asked some questions.
Excellent.
We'll start off with the first one. How much additional does the GlideFast methodology cost?
It does not cost anything additional. Right now, it will always be a mutually beneficial situation, right? So the one thing I realized about training, I want to be the best, so does everybody. I want to have the best training department that's out there, but you can't really focus on the training department being the best. You have to focus on the students being the best. So when you take that away and you focus on the student, and then the way to do that is to always be in contact, we help the student by giving them more information, but we get that information from the student, which then builds back in. So this is no additional cost. It's whatever it is you pay for the training.
Awesome. Here's another question. Is it true, Alex, that you wrote the Discovery ServiceNow textbook?
That is partially true. I did help write it. There's a lot of, that was one of the oldest classes that ServiceNow wrote. So I used to work for ServiceNow. I was a trainer for them for a couple years, and then they somehow let me be a curriculum developer. Multiple great managers over here. That was pretty great. But it's actually Doug Schultze started it, then Glenn Pinto took over, and then I wrote it for about 3 years, and now my buddy Steve Cron writes it. So it's more of a group effort, but I would say of the 3 of them that I'm the smartest.
Awesome.
Just kidding, guys.
A humble brag. All right, well, that looks like that's it for the Q&A. So we'd like to move on and announce the winner of our $50 Visa gift card. And it looks like the winner is Ashanti Lewis. Congratulations. We're going to email you that prize to whichever email you signed up for this webinar on. So congrats, Ashanti. But don't worry if you didn't win today. Don't be discouraged. Every on-air webinar you attend for both GlideFast and our sister company, Farracode, counts as an entry into our on-air grand prize giveaway of a mirror workout, a $1,500 value. We're actually going to be selecting the winner of that the end of this month, so very soon. Thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to reach out to training@glidefast.com if you have any questions for Alex, and make sure you check out our website to view all of the upcoming on-air series. Thanks, everyone.